I 29 male. I've been with my ex-fiancée for 4 years, engaged for 1. We met through mutual friends, and things move fast. She was charismatic, driven, and seemed to have everything together. I work in logistics, supply chain management, which means long hours but good money. She worked part-time in marketing, but mostly took it upon herself to manage our lifestyle. At the time, I thought this was a fair trade. I paid the rent, the utilities, the car notes, and the insurance. She handled the groceries, the social calendar, and making our apartment look like something out of a magazine. I didn't mind providing. I'm old school like that. I like taking care of her. The cracks started showing about 3 months ago. My mother, who was my rock, was diagnosed with early-stage heart failure. It was a massive shock. My dad passed away 5 years ago, so it's just me and my sister looking out for Mom. The doctor said it's manageable with medication and lifestyle changes, but it was a harsh reminder that she won't be around forever. With her 70th birthday coming up, my sister and I decided we wanted to do something big. We wanted a celebration of life, a nice banquet hall, catering, extended family flying in from out of state, the whole 9 yards. My ex hated the idea from the moment I brought it up. We were having dinner, and I mentioned that my sister and I were budgeting about $3,000 a party. She literally stopped chewing and looked at me like I had grown a second head. She asked why we were spending that kind of money on a party for an old woman who probably wouldn't even remember it in a few years. I tried to stay calm and explain that Mom is sharp as a tack, not senile, and this was a milestone. She didn't let it go. She started complaining that the money was supposed to go toward upgrading our honeymoon. We had booked a nice trip to Hawaii, but she wanted Bora Bora. She wanted the overwater bungalow and the first-class tickets. I told her Hawaii was already booked and paid for, and that my mom was more important than a room upgrade. That was the first time I saw real venom in her eyes. Over the next few weeks, she became impossible. She forgot to mail the invitations. I asked her to drop off. She tried to schedule a couple's retreat on the same weekend as the party. Claiming it was non-refundable, I checked it wasn't. She picked fights with my sister over the catering menu, insisting we needed high-end vegan options for her friends, even though none of her friends were even invited. It was my family's event, but she was acting like it was a personal attack on her spotlight. The explosion happened last Friday. I came home from work exhausted. The venue needed the final deposit, so I had transferred the money from our joint savings account, which, to be clear, was funded 90% by my paycheck, to my personal checking account to write the check. She was waiting for me in the living room, arms crossed, with that look that says we need to talk. She didn't even say hello. She just accused me of moving the money behind her back. I reminded her that the deposit was due and we had discussed this. She lost it. She started screaming that she had put a hold on a venue for our rehearsal dinner and needed that cash. I told her our wedding was 8 months away and we had plenty of time to save for the rehearsal, but Mom's birthday was in 2 weeks. She got right in my face, invading my personal space, which is something she always did to intimidate me. She told me she was sick of coming second to my mother. She called me a mama's boy and said it was unattractive that a near 30-year-old man was still so attached to his mommy. I tried to walk away, to de-escalate, but she grabbed my arm and spun me around. That's when she dropped the ultimatum. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "It's either your mother's 70th birthday or our relationship. I'm not celebrating with your family again. You cancel that party, get that money back, and put it toward us, or I'm done. Choose." The room went dead silent. The hum of the refrigerator seemed deafening. I looked at her, really looked at her. I saw the designer shoes I paid for, the ring on her finger that cost me 6 months of overtime, the apartment lease that was solely in my name because her credit was shot when we met. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel panic. I felt a cold, hard clarity. I realized that if I caved this, I would be caving for the rest of my life. I asked her if she was serious. She said she was dead serious. So I took a slow breath and said, "Okay." She smirked, thinking she had won. Then I said, "I choose my family." Her smile dropped instantly. She asked what I meant. I told her that she made it an ultimatum. She wanted me to choose, and I chose them. We were done. I walked past her into the bedroom and grabbed my suitcase. For a solid 10 seconds, she didn't move. She couldn't process that her leverage didn't exist. Then she exploded. She followed me, screaming, throwing a vase against the wall, blocking the doorway. She shrieked that I was throwing away 4 years over a stupid birthday party. I told her I wasn't ending it over a party. I was ending it because she tried to blackmail me emotionally to hurt my mother. I packed my work shirts and essentials. She yelled that I couldn't leave, asking who was going to pay the rent. I told her that wasn't my problem anymore. She wanted to be independent of my family. This was her chance. As I walked to the door, she dug her nails into my arm and told me if I walked out, I wasn't coming back. I told her that was the plan. Then I stopped and looked at her hand. I asked for the ring. She covered it with her other hand and refused. She said I ended it, so it was hers. I told her that in our state, an engagement ring is a conditional gift contingent on marriage. No marriage, no ring. I told her to give it to me. She sneered and told me to make her, daring me to touch her so she could call the cops. I knew better than to take that bait. I pulled out my phone hit record and stated clearly that I was canceling the lease, removing her as an authorized user on my cards, and that I would sue her for the ring. I told her she had 30 days to figure out her life, and then I walked out. I drove straight to my mom's house. I didn't tell her the gritty details, just that we had split up. I didn't want to ruin her pre-birthday excitement. But the next morning, the war began. I woke up to fraud alerts on my phone. She had tried to drain the joint checking account, the one we use for bills. She transferred $4,500 at 3 a.m. I called the bank immediately because the transfer was a massive lump sum to an account not in my name and looked suspicious. They froze it pending review, but she had already done damage elsewhere. She maxed out the credit card I gave her for groceries. She bought a $2,000 flight to Cabo and $1,500 in designer clothes online. I sat at my mom's kitchen table, drinking coffee, and realized this wasn't just a bad breakup. I was dealing with a financial predator. I called the credit card company and canceled the card. Since she was an authorized user, I was technically liable for the debt, but I disputed the charges as unauthorized since the relationship had ended hours prior. Then I called my landlord. I told him the situation, that I had moved out and the relationship was over. Since our lease had gone month to month, I gave my 30-day notice immediately. I told him she was still there, but she wasn't on the lease. He said she was technically a guest who refuses to leave, but he agreed to serve a formal notice to vacate for the end of the term. By noon, she had taken to social media. She posted a photo of herself crying, captioning it with a sob story about how the man she trusted for 4 years abandoned her and left her homeless just because she stood up for herself against his abusive family. She left out the ultimatum and the theft, obviously. My sister wanted to go to war in the comments, but I told her to stand down. We were going to handle this legally. I contacted a lawyer friend of mine regarding the ring. He drafted a demand letter. Return the 1.5-carat diamond ring within 7 days or face a civil suit. I went back to the apartment 2 days later with my brother-in-law and a police escort to get the rest of my things. I wasn't taking chances with false domestic violence allegations. When she opened the door and saw the officer, she went pale. She tried to play the victim for the cop, saying I was leaving her with nothing, but he just told her it was a civil matter. The apartment was a wreck. Trash everywhere. As I packed my electronics, I handed her the envelope with the legal demand letter. She laughed, a manic, high-pitched sound, and told me I was wasting my time because she had already pawned the ring. My blood ran cold. She said she needed cash since I cut off her cards. I looked at the officer, but he shrugged. Again, civil matter unless I could prove theft, which is messy with engagement rings before a court order. I left shaking with rage, but something didn't add up. She pawned an $8,500 ring in 24 hours? Pawn shops give you pennies on the dollar. She would have gotten maybe $1,000. Why was she so desperate for cash? She had a job. I did some digging. I still had access to her laptop. She left logged in on our shared cloud account. I know, invasion of privacy, but I was looking for financial ruin, not secrets. And I found it. Online gambling. Thousands of dollars. Not just recently. For years. She had credit cards I didn't know about, all maxed out. She had taken out payday loans. The reason she was so controlling about the finances and handled the mail was that she was running a Ponzi scheme on our life. She was using my salary to pay the minimums on her secret debts. The honeymoon upgrade, money she was screaming about, it didn't exist. She had probably spent it months ago. She needed me to cancel my mom's party to get the deposit refund, so she could cover a balloon payment on a loan that was about to go to collections. The ultimatum wasn't about hating my mother. It was about needing $3,000 cash immediately. I printed everything. The gambling losses, the loan statements, the dates that match withdrawals. 2 weeks passed with silence. I focused on my mom. We decorated the hall, confirmed the guests, and tried to move on. Then, the night of the party arrived. My mom looked beautiful, glowing, surrounded by 50 of her closest friends and family. We were giving toasts, and I was standing with a microphone, telling a story about how my mom used to work 2 jobs to put me through college. Suddenly, the double doors to the banquet hall swung open. It was her, my ex. She wasn't wearing rags. She was wearing the designer dress she bought on my credit card the morning after we broke up. She looked disheveled, frantic, and she had a phone in her hand, live streaming. She marched right into the center of the room. The music died. She started shouting for her audience, pointing the phone at me, calling me the man who threw his fiancée onto the street. Then she pointed at my mother and called her the woman who ruined her life. My cousin started moving to intercept her, but I held up a hand. I spoke into the microphone and told everyone to let her speak. I wanted witnesses. She stopped, confused by my lack of fear, and turned the camera on herself. She screamed that she just wanted to talk, that she wanted to work this out, but I blocked her. Then she dropped her second nuke. She announced to the entire room that she was pregnant. The room went dead silent. I froze. We hadn't been intimate in 2 months because of the stress. She smirked, seeing my hesitation, and said she was carrying my child and I had evicted her. That's when my mother stood up. She walked slowly toward my ex. My mom is a small woman, frail, but in that moment, she looked 10 feet tall. She spoke softly, but loud enough for the room to hear. She said, "You're not pregnant, dear." My ex screamed at her to shut up, calling her an old witch. My mom didn't flinch. She repeated, "You're not pregnant, because 3 months ago, you drank 2 bottles of wine at my house and told my niece you had your tubes tied 5 years ago because you hate screaming brats. You made her promise not to tell my son. Did you forget?" My ex's face went crimson. The lie crumbled instantly. If she was really pregnant, she would have denied the tube tying or offered medical proof. Instead, she panicked. I stepped off the stage and walked up to her, pulling the folded papers from my jacket pocket, the gambling debts, the loan shark letters. I told her she was done and to get out. She lunged for me, screaming that she had rights. Security, whom my sister had wisely hired, stepped in. She grabbed a wine glass off a table and threw it, missing my mother by inches and shattering it against the wall. That was it. My cousin, who is an off-duty police sergeant, stepped in and pulled out his handcuffs. He told her she was under arrest for assault and trespassing. She was dragged out, sobbing and wailing that she loved me, begging me to stop them. I didn't say a word. I just turned back to my mom. Later that night, after the adrenaline wore off, I asked my mom how she knew about the tubes tied thing. My mom took a sip of tea and admitted she didn't know. She made it up. She said she knew a bluff when she saw one. She knew if she hit her with something specific and embarrassing, my ex would panic and attack the accuser rather than the accusation. My 70-year-old mother out-manipulated the manipulator. But the story doesn't end there. I wasn't going to let the financial damage slide. She had destroyed my credit, attempted to steal thousands, and pawned a family heirloom ring. I filed a police report for the theft of the $4,500 and the credit card fraud. Since she was an authorized user, the credit card company was hesitant to call it fraud, but I had audio of her admitting to pawning the ring and evidence of the unauthorized bank transfers after the breakup. The police took the theft seriously. The sweetest revenge, however, was the civil suit. I sued her for the value of the ring, the stolen funds, and the damages to the apartment. She had punched holes in the walls before vacating. We ended up in court 2 months later. She showed up without a lawyer because she couldn't afford one. She tried to pour me act with the judge, cry about how I was abusive and the gambling debts were ours. The judge, a stern woman who clearly had zero patience for nonsense, looked over my evidence. The text where she admitted to pawning the ring, the gambling log showing only her name, and the video from the birthday party. The judgment was swift. She was ordered to repay me $14,500. This included the ring's value, since she couldn't return it, the cash she took, and legal fees. Here is where her entitlement tried one last trick. Because she had no money, she tried to file for Chapter 7 bankruptcy to wipe the debt. She actually told a mutual friend she was going to do it, so I wouldn't get a dime. My lawyer smiled when he heard this. He explained that debts incurred through fraud or willful and malicious injury cannot be discharged in bankruptcy if you file an adversary proceeding. We did exactly that. We proved that her selling the ring and taking the money was malicious. The bankruptcy court agreed. The debt stuck. She is now working 2 jobs, and her wages are garnished. Every paycheck she gets, 25% comes directly to me. It will take her years to pay me back. She tried to reach out a few times with long, rambling emails about finding God and treating her addiction, begging me to stop the garnishment. I just forwarded them to my lawyer. I live in a smaller apartment now, closer to my mom. My credit score took a hit, but I've paid off the cards and it's climbing back up. I'm single and enjoying the silence. I haven't even thought about dating. The ex moved back in with her parents in a different state. Her reputation in our town is destroyed after the video of her screaming at a senior citizen went locally viral. I think a lot about that ultimatum. She thought she was forcing me to choose between the past and the future, but she was forcing me to choose between obligation and integrity. If I had caved, I would have lost my self-respect. I would have married a woman who viewed my family as competition. I would be raising children with a gambling addict who resents their grandmother. If someone asks you to choose between them and your family isn't abusive, choose the family. Every time. Because the person asking you to choose is showing you that their love is conditional on your submission. I found out the hard way, but I'm rebuilding. And next Sunday, I'm taking my mom to brunch. No permission needed.